Darktide. If you haven't already purchased this game or know what's going on or why it has such a horrible rating on Steam right now, allow me to introduce you to the many reasons why this game deserves so much better than it's gotten and why so many people are so frustrated with it. But like with all of my other rant videos, I want to get into the things they did right first so people don't think there's nothing to like about this game and why I still actively play it despite the horrible reception around it. So first of all, 40k universe. Beautiful universe in the sense that it's a really good universe, really fleshed out universe, and I really like the story and the setting, the architecture, the design, just everything about 40k I recently got into, and I've been loving just everything to do with 40k, and having a game set in that isn't an RTS game makes me really happy. So level design wise, some people are saying that, you know, the levels are a little bit too redundant, but even with that, the level design, the architectural design and aesthetic of these levels is top notch. They nailed the 40k feel, and I really feel it when I run through missions, whether it be forward or backward. I really enjoy the architectural and structural design. Even the non-Euclidean level design doesn't bother me because of how good these levels look and feel. Gameplay. The gameplay is really solid. Obviously, there's a lot of issues that we'll get into later about this, but the core fundamental gameplay loop feels really good. The combat system itself feels really good. Enemy ragdolls are hilarious, and I love just how much time and effort went into making the guns and weapons and melee and all that feel pretty good to use to an extent. There's a lot of issues with it still. I really feel like there is a very good game hidden under all of these massive, frustrating, and annoying issues that the game currently has, and I feel if they can get it past these issues, then this game will survive for a long time, like Vermintide did. So, I want to get into the things that really bother me and things that really make me feel like this game could have been much better at launch. And I want to get into the current state of how things currently feel. So getting the elephant in the room out of the way first, we have the just lack of content, lack of promises and features that should have been there at launch. Darktide and fatshark have fallen victim to one of the most predictable modern gaming trends so far. They release a beta 2 weeks before launch. People say, yeah, there's some issues here. 2 weeks later, they've fixed some of the major bugs, and then they have the game for about a week, and people are starting to realize, hey, all of these things that were promised still aren't in the game yet. I paid $40 for a game that's not even finished yet. Classic modern gaming move. So, with all of that in mind, the negative reviews come in, and the developers or the PR team, whoever's in charge of that, release an open letter to their players saying, oops, we're sorry we didn't finish the game. We're gonna focus on fixing the game and actually finishing working on it, and release the ever so awful and predictable roadmap. That right there tells you that from day one, they knew what they were doing. They were just hoping the blowback wasn't going to be that bad. And I don't mean the developers. I don't mean the ground floor people making the game and working on it every day just for a paycheck. I'm talking about the people who are in charge of making these awful decisions. So the open letter reads pretty much how you'd expect. We're sorry that we screwed up. We're sorry you don't like where the game is at. And we're sorry that the game's not where it should be. We're sorry for not finishing the game, essentially. And this is where I'm actually holding out a little bit of hope for this, because they do go as far as to say we are halting any and all production for the Xbox port of this game. We are also not going to release any more premium cosmetics in our microtransaction store. Oh yeah, they have an in-game store. You can spend real money on skins, by the way. That's another fantastic thing they decided to prioritize over finishing the game. But those last two lines are what really give me hope. They say, we're halting production on anything to do with another port for this game, and we are stopping any and all premium cosmetic purchases that we were going to put into the game so we can finish fixing and making the game. With all that being said, I want to get into the fundamentals of the game itself that still really bother me. Thing number one, XP, experience. It is redundant after level 30. It is not important. You don't need it ever again. It's completely pointless. I'm not really sure why we don't get any any sort of extra reward for that, like maybe a percentage to our dockets that we earn, something like that. Just something to make it feel where XP isn't completely useless at level 30, and any curio that you have an experience bonus isn't completely pointless up to that point. Number 2, holy god, the RNG in this game. Yeah, it's a looter shooter of sorts, but it is ridiculous how poor some of the weapons feel, how unbelievably unfair the RNG system is, and how seemingly clunky and awful a lot of the overall mechanics of gunplay feel. Like, not every single weapon in the game feels awful, but there is a lot of redundant weapons, and you can get a slightly better version of that same weapon. It's just not fun to have a 2% increase to a weapon when you played the game for a while and you just feel like you're not making progress because all of the weapons feel like shit. Thing number 3, this one is a major gripe of mine. This is one of the things I hope they fix sooner rather than later. The contracts. The weekly time gate on contracts is a stupid idea. I paid $40 for this game. Why are you time gating my ability to earn good weapons and gear outside of the, again, awful RNG system you have in place to allow me to get good weapons from that? Some of these challenges are just straight up not worth it, not worthwhile in any sort of way, and you only get a few cycles, which, by the way, the game's unfinished enough to where it doesn't even tell you that you've run out of cycles for that week. Like, you can't replace them again. If you keep trying after hitting that limit, it will simply ask you if you want to replace that challenge and then not do anything after that. It seems like it's just broken and it just looks like it's not working, but it's functioning as intended. It's just not telling you that you've hit that limit. The challenges themselves, the ones that are specific to very certain nodes or mission types or mission areas, need to be removed or reduced at the very least. 6 separate side objectives on one specific mission tile set with how awful the mission system is just not fun. I've been stuck on doing the Chasm Logistratum one for about 2 days now because it just doesn't give me any Logistratum missions. And that perfectly segues me into the other huge gripe I have, the mission board itself. It is bad. It is bafflingly bad. The missions themselves are fun, but the way you go about selecting difficulties, modifiers, and side objectives is out of your control. You do not get to choose. It is a RNG system with a time limit for how long each mission is available, in which case it can spawn 3 or 4 of the same exact mission on different difficulties with different modifiers. This is a screenshot I took just to show you how stupid this is, and I'm still stuck on that Logistratum mission type. Look how many of these are pretty much the exact same mission, just with different difficulties and maybe going for scriptures instead of grimoires, or high intensity instead of regular. So I'm effectively screwed on doing my contract, which is basically the last one I need to finish out this week, which is only 2 days after it has cycled, by the way. So let's say I complete this challenge. What am I left to do after this? Sit on my ass and wait until the next week for the next set of weekly challenges. For a special currency you can only get through these awful contracts. So the next thing I want to talk about, I want to give a little bit of credit where credit is due. There have been a couple of massive patches that have addressed a large majority of issues, one of them being just how unfinished a lot of the weapons and mechanics felt. The first major patch is so long with just things that weren't functioning properly. Just things that were either inconsistent or straight up broken and not working 90% of the time. That was the majority of the first patch. The second patch, which came out as I'm doing the script, by the way, is a more of a balance pass. They nerfed it something about Preacher and buffed something about them. They had some issues that they resolved with Psyker, Ogren, and Veteran, as well as some buffs and changes throughout that. And then the rest of the list feels like more issues that just weren't working in general, or were partially working, or just making guns feel less like cinder blocks in your hand. And that's the big gripe I have for this next point, is the weapons just don't feel great. They haven't, and this patch I'm hoping will fix that issue. I don't really like how when you swap weapons, some weapons are almost immediate weapon swaps, and others, your guy has to do this really unnecessary animation of slapping the charging handle of the bolter forward, or awkwardly slamming the back of the stock on the flamethrower, or just how some weapons feel like your character doesn't really realize that they're still chambered, there's no safety on or anything like that. They just have these unnecessary animations that oftentimes gets me killed because I can't swap weapons and do the awful animation of aiming down sights with how clunky and unfinished and awful the guns feel. And this isn't every single gun. This is the guns that I have personally used. If you have a better experience, let me know in the comments below. Last one, which they also addressed kind of in this latest patch. I'm gonna read the exact line from the patch notes. Added a change so that players with faster machines will no longer have to wait for players with slower machines to finish loading before starting the mission. This addresses the really bad load times that this game has, and these last couple of patches I have noticed that it has been significantly better in some cases, not all the time, and they have said they're working on it. Again, I want to reiterate, do not attack ground floor developers or anyone at fatshark over things like this. Make your voices heard by talking about it, but do not directly attack or insult or belittle anyone who works at fatshark. Just make your frustration known, and hopefully in the future we can stop developers and publishers from thinking they can get away with delivering a half-baked product and then fixing it into what it should have been in the first place. We need to normalize not letting companies take our money for a promise and then not deliver on that promise. I'm looking at you, Battlefield 2042. But that's it for the rambling of all the issues I have with Darktide. I still really enjoy the game. It's still a great game. There's a foundation there that feels really good, and that's why I still play it despite all of the issues, but they really need to get them resolved. Let me know your experiences in the comments, any gripes you have, any other things I missed that you really like about it, or let me know if you disagree with a lot of the issues I have. But that's just one man's take on it, and I will see you guys in the next video.